Good morning from Palm Springs. I had a great sleep last night here. I stayed at the Travelodge here in Palm Springs. It was a super sweet price, with the price here. And can't beat it for that price, honestly. Just give you a quick room tour here this morning. So, come in and there's good cold air conditioner here. Nice desk and chair for working from. Good size, queen size bed, which was super comfortable. Lots of pillows. TV over here. Microwave, coffee maker, mini fridge. And then in here we have the bathroom, which has got a separate vanity area, sink and all that good stuff. And then in here is the shower, toilet. Great shower, nice and hot. So yeah, for that price, to be totally honest, I wasn't expecting much for what I paid, but per dollar value, if you want to call it that, this was probably the best deal I've had my whole trip. Quick and easy check-in, good strong Wi-Fi. Yeah, no problems at all. So highly recommend if you come to Palm Springs and you want to look for somewhere that's affordable. Like, this was cheaper than some hostels that I looked at in other cities. So yeah, definitely consider staying here at the Travelodge in Palm Springs. Good place, great. So it's early in the morning. It's early for me lately. It's just before 8 o'clock, and it's actually kind of cool outside at the moment. When I got to Palm Springs last night, it was 109 degrees Fahrenheit. And up until when I fell asleep at around 11 o'clock or something, it was still 100 degrees or so. This morning, the good news is that it's only 80 at the moment. So I'm going to take this opportunity to go out and get some breakfast. I'm going to run a couple errands before I leave town. And yeah, let's go and see what Palm Springs is like. Alright, breakfast is done. One of the things I've really liked about a lot of the places that I've stopped at during my trip is that everyone gives you a coffee to go, which is super helpful when you're, an addict of caffeine. One of the things that Palm Springs obviously is most famous for is that in the 50s and 60s, this was the spot to come for celebrities. Palm Springs was often their getaway from Los Angeles for weekends or whatever, and a large number of some of the most famous people in Hollywood all resided here at one point or another. So I thought I'd take a little drive around and have a look at a few of the different places where some of those celebrities lived. They obviously don't live there anymore. Many of them have passed on, but as far as I know, most of the homes are still intact and still very much resemble how they used to back in their heyday. So let's go have a look. Alright, so we're at our first stop, and it's what's known as the Kaufmann Desert House. So Edgar Kaufmann was a famous businessman who owned Kaufmann department stores in Pittsburgh back in the 30s and 40s, and was one of the richest people in America at the time. And he already owned one of the most famous homes in the US, which was known as Fallingwater. And he decided that he wanted a winter place as well. So in I believe it was 1946, he commissioned the build of a home here in Palm Springs. And at the time, the home cost approximately $300,000 to build, which was an astronomical amount of money at the time. And it has become known as one of the most amazing and important homes in America. It's on many top 10 or top 20 lists of homes in the country. I believe I've even seen it's on a top 10 list for homes in Los Angeles, even though we're 2+ hours outside of LA here in Palm Springs. The only downside, at least from my perspective at the moment, is that the current owners of the home are quite private, and they've erected a very high wall. It's all very secured off, but there is a small plaque and you can catch a small glimpse of the house. So let's go over and see if we can have a quick look before someone yells at me. You can see the surrounding landscape here is just amazing. Yeah, it's very strict. It says no trespassing, armed response. So I'm not going to do that, obviously. But I do just want to have a look at the plaque that's here. And you can see it says Kaufmann House, Richard Neutra was the architect. Built in 1946 and then restored later in 1997. So anyway, without going any further, since I'm still in the street here, you can get a small glimpse of the home and the amazing style of the home, where it was built to kind of blend right in with the natural location that it's in. I'll add a couple extra pictures as well if I can find some online. I mean, I would do just about anything to be able to get in and take a look at that place. But I also respect that they want their privacy, and that is okay by me. Alright, so the next place we're going to go check out was famous for its huge parties. And, you know, you could name drop literally everybody who would go to the parties at this house back in the 50s. It's only a couple of blocks from here, so let's go take a look. So this is 1295 Viamonte. In the 50s and 60s, this was the home of Peter Lawford, the actor, and his wife, Pat Kennedy, who was the sister of JFK. They would host parties here at this house with all of the rich and famous. A lot of the LA weekend getaways would come here. Marilyn Monroe would party here quite a lot as well. Good friends with all of them. Where Lawford was also part of the Rat Pack, so of course he was also involved with Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., all of those guys. When they were not hanging out at Frank Sinatra's place, this was usually the backup space. What's neat about this place is you can actually rent it to stay in on a nightly basis or weekly basis or whatever. If I find the price, I'll put it on the screen here. But yeah, I mean, this was, you know, one of the places to come in the 50s and 60s with all the movie stars. Up next, we have the home of one of the most famous and popular musicians of all time. When he got married, they spent their honeymoon and first couple of years at this home quite often. So in 1966, when a certain famous musician by the name of Elvis Presley got married to his wife Priscilla, this is the home that they stayed in for their first year of marriage, 66 to 67. This is at 1350 Ladera Circle here in Palm Springs. And yeah, it was considered a home of the future at the time. It had many automated controls for the climate, for the windows, the waterfall out the front, and so forth. So this home was originally built, I believe, in the 50s. It was not built for the Presleys. Yeah, so it was built by William Crizzle, who was the architect. It was built in 1960, and then it was renovated in 2022. It was classed a historic building in 2021. Anyway, beautiful home. I won't go any closer because, again, it's private property, and you know, I don't want to get in trouble or cause anyone any stress. But this is it, and it's kind of nice that this one is open. You can drive right up to it and have a look at it. It's worth mentioning that there are private tours available of the home. I believe it's in the afternoons on the weekdays. I'm not sure who you'd have to get in touch with, so if I find that information, I'll put it here on the screen. But I believe that there are tours available of the home if you want to go inside and sit where the king sat. Okay, moving on from here, going to go to our next stop, which is arguably one of the biggest movie stars of all time, and it was a home that they spent about a year or so in back in the 50s. So this is 1326 North Rose Avenue, and if the little pink mailbox with all the ornate decorations on it isn't a clue, this is the former home of Marilyn Monroe, and she lived here back in the 50s for a while. She lived in a lot of different places over the years, between marriages and you know, different homes, but this was the one here in Palm Springs that was her own, that she lived in. Now this is another one that you can rent if you want to live the Marilyn Monroe lifestyle. There's a pool in the back. I'll post a couple of their pictures because it's on Airbnb, and this can be yours for a cool $650 US per night. It's really interesting how, you know, she would have been here in the 50s, and the Elvis Presley home would have been mid-60s, and yet they're a block apart from each other. So there was a lot of overlap between the stars here over the years, and a lot of them were up very close to each other in the same, you know, part of the town as well, kind of right up here, backed up against the hills. You can see all the mountains are, you know, right there. So every home in this area, by the way, is amazing. They're all very 50s style, modern, kind of mid-century Art Deco, really cool looking spots. So anyway, that is the Marilyn Monroe mansion. Let's head to another member of the Rat Pack's homes, who again was only like 2 blocks from here. Well, there's not much to show you with this next one, unfortunately. This was the home of legendary actor Dean Martin and his wife in the 1960s and 70s. He bought this back in the mid-60s for, I believe, around $55,000–$60,000. But as I've arrived, it appears that they have that the house is going under a complete redo. All that's left of the house right now is right down to the studs. I'm assuming they're going to probably redo it in the traditional style. But yeah, unfortunately there's not much to see here other than that brief glimpse I just gave you over the fence. So, having said that, let's move on to the next one. So we're here now at 417 West Hermosa Place in Palm Springs, and this is a home that was owned for many years by Elizabeth Taylor. And she resided here for, I believe, 20-ish years. After the house was sold, it was then purchased and remodeled by the model Kathy Ireland. And so now the house has been fully restored. It's full of Elizabeth Taylor's art collection. Supposedly the Andy Warhol portrait of Elizabeth Taylor is inside this house as well. You can even rent it for weddings or, you know, for a getaway, I guess, if you wanted to. Not sure how much we can see. It's behind a pretty high wall here at this point. And again, I don't want to, you know, cause any trouble. But if I'm out here on the road, so that's just a brief glimpse of the home. It is the Walter Kirshner residence, completed in 1937 and was classed a historic site in 2019. So anyway, that is the Elizabeth Taylor home. Again, you know, all these places are similar. They all have, you know, armed response warnings posted outside. So, you know, I don't really feel like getting held up with a gun or anything. If I do find some pictures, by the way, online, I will add them to this. But this is what you can see from the road. We have just 3 more stops on this little tour of Palm Springs celebrity homes. This is a little bit different perhaps than some of my regular videos, but I am a huge movie fan, and you know, I've seen movies with all of these people in them, of course, so I thought this would be kind of a fun change of pace for seeing something different in Palm Springs, especially after being in the desert for 4 days now, and it's just hot and dry. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. So I've stopped here now at 501 Bellardo Place in Palm Springs, and 501 Bellardo Place was the home of Liberace. He bought this home, I believe originally it was like a hotel that he purchased and then converted into his home and lived here for many years. It's a little hard to see because again there's a wall fence around it, but you can kind of have a little peek through and see some of the home. There's obviously a large gate here in front of the garage as well, but yeah, this is the home of Liberace, and again, similar to the others, this is 2 blocks from some of the other famous homes that we've seen today, and again at a different time period. So, you know, you've had people in the 50s, in the 60s, 70s and 80s, all celebrities, and all owning these homes like within blocks of each other. It's bizarre to me in a way. Supposedly the story goes that at one point Liberace actually ended up moving out to the garage of the house and had lived there for 6 to 12 months. But I don't know the particulars around that, so I can't speculate, but nonetheless, here we are. So we've got 3 spots left, and they are arguably the 3 biggest in terms of notoriety for Palm Springs. Here we are at 1148 East Alejo Road, arguably one of the most famous homes in all of Palm Springs, and this is the Frank Sinatra residence. This house was made for Frank Sinatra in 1947 after he had made his first $1 million. It was designed by the architect E. Stewart Williams, who later became quite famous for a lot of mid-century homes, and this place kind of became a template for many other places as well. And it's now known as Twin Palms for a reason, because of the twin palm trees that sit in the backyard. Just gonna have a quick look over the fence. There's the front of the home. One of the legends about this place with Frank Sinatra was that there was a flagpole in the backyard, and when he wanted people to come over, and if he was home and wanted to have a drink, he'd put a flag up on the flagpole to let people know to come by. So the Sinatra home is actually available for rent. I couldn't find a price online. They have a dedicated website for it, so it's one of those things where if you have to ask for the price, then you probably can't afford it. but it's a beautiful spot here, fully restored. Looks amazing from even just this view. And the pictures that I've seen of the house, which I'll put it here, make it look spectacular inside as well. So yeah, so this is one of the first homes that was really built here for celebrities, that kind of took on that classic Palm Springs home look, and many other people after this followed this template. All right, 2 left. So our second to last stop here is at 1188 East El Alameda in Palm Springs. I believe this is also the oldest house on our little run through the city today. So this home was built in 1935 and sits on almost 16,000 square feet here in the city. And this was the home of Bob Hope. Now, Bob Hope owned, I believe, 4 different properties in Palm Springs, but this was probably his most famous. And again, there's a plaque here. So it was built in 1935. It was purchased by Bob and Dolores Hope in 1946. And they finally sold it in 2013 after 67 years of ownership. This house was famous for having a huge pool in the backyard, and was sort of like a ranch style home. And apparently, from what I understand, most of the house looks exactly like it did back in 1935. Now, I'm not going to be a creeper and, you know, try and sneak a picture through the wall or through the garden or anything. Yeah, so they've got it pretty well secured off, so that's fine. But when you do come here, this is where the home resides. All right, one final stop to another very famous actor's home where he lived for over 20 years here in Palm Springs. So let's go take a look. And so we are here at our final stop on this little mini tour around the city. And the initial CG might help with a hint as to who once lived here. Built in 1927, and then in 1954 was purchased by legendary film actor Cary Grant, who lived here for almost 20 years. In 2009 it was fully restored back to its original look, and was designated a heritage property shortly after. One of the original things that remains from here is the original mailbox, which was designed to look just like the house. Thankfully, the house is in better shape than the mailbox. And because I don't have to reach, you can actually stand here and have a look inside. You can see the home. And there's a little outbuilding there. Just a beautiful spot. Cary Grant would host very lavish parties here. The guest list was enormous over the years. However, some of the most notable names would be people like Alfred Hitchcock, Clark Gable, Grace Kelly, Katharine Hepburn, Howard Hughes, Frank Sinatra, all partied here at this house. The house is about 6,000 square feet in total, and everything was custom. So custom cabinets, custom fireplaces, the whole bit. I'm not even actually sure if anybody currently is residing here or not, based on the fact that the mailbox looks like it's pretty full of stuff. But anyway, just a remarkable home. And again, one of the older ones in the city, which ended up sitting on tons of property because there was lots of it to go around at the time. And so that concludes our little tour. 10 homes, 10 celebrities, or famous homes in Palm Springs. And I hope you enjoyed this. It was a little bit different, and something that I particularly enjoyed, again, being such a movie fan. I thought it was really cool to kind of drive around and see all these places. And again, they're all within, like, 10 blocks of each other and spread over decades. Just fascinating to see. And it really does go to show how important Palm Springs has been for, people wanting to get away from the city. Being only 2 hours from Los Angeles, it was a great way for people to get out of the city for a weekend or for a week or however long they wanted, or to have this as a second home to come and, spend some time here. Anyway, that's it for this tour. I have one more place I wanted to go check out today in Palm Springs before I head back to Los Angeles. And yeah, let's go check it out.